Boom, we're rolling. Josh, thanks for coming on. I think we've known each other for just over 60 seconds.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have you done pods before?
I've done a few. Yeah, yes, sir.
Cool. Cool. You like doing them?
It's fun to get on and just kind of tell our story. When we started off, we were real passionate about sharing the first generation, rancher theme. So, yeah, always a good time to get on and talk to folks.
Yeah, I like doing it too. It's everybody's got something to offer, I've come to realize, regardless of what their background is or what they might do for work or where they're from. Everybody's got a story and it's kind of fun to tap into.
Yeah, yeah, and it looks like you kind of span a lot of different genres of stories. So,
I'm all over
right,
the map.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like talking to, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I do like talking to good old boys. And when I saw your page, I was like, you have a good old boy kind of vibe to you. So I was excited for this one.
Right on, right on. Well, thanks for that.
Who are you, man?
Who am I? Josh Ciardullo, owner of Ciardullo Ranch. It's a grass-fed beef operation here in northern Colorado. Little backstory on that: I was a firefighter paramedic for 20 years down in Denver, and my wife and I had moved up to northern Colorado and purchased 33 acres, a little bit of irrigation for about 10 acres of it. And first few years we were here, we just kind of irrigated the grass and then sharecropped it and sold the hay and made enough money to pay for the water. So it was kind of just busy work. And, I told her one day, I said, why don't we, we're really into organic food and animal welfare. I said, why don't we buy a couple steers, and that way we know exactly what input went into them, exactly how they were treated. Because I'm sure with the fitness thing, you're pretty on the ball when it comes to nutrition. There's a lot of greenwashing, right? Like you're trying to figure out, like, the marketing stuff that comes at you. You're like, just tell me what this thing ate and tell me how it lived. And so,
Right.
this was one way that we could kind of do it ourselves. And I went to go purchase some cattle, and I wound up buying three steers. And I came home, and the wife was like, "Well, what the heck? You got three?" And I said, "Well, they're herd animals. We got to kind of, they got to be more than one." And so I went to the
They
fire
need a
station.
crew.
Yeah, you got to have a crew. So I told the guys, I was like, you guys need to buy some beef from me. And then it just kind of took off from there when people liked what we were doing. So we've been at that now full time since 2019. 2019, I left the fire department with an injury that I had sustained in my neck a few years prior and just couldn't. I tried the platelets, the stem cells, the whole nine yards, trying to get that disc fixed, and had to eventually leave because I knew I wasn't going to make it to retirement age. So kicked the can down the road for quite a while. Had to have a disc replacement surgery last March, but here we are doing the damn thing.
Doing the damn thing.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that really is it at the end of the day. Was ranching something that you always wanted to do?
No way. No, I never even. And it's funny because I kick myself now, right? I'm sure you think of things too. The older you get, you're like, I wish I could have started that a little earlier. But we'd go with our entire family, cousins, uncles, aunts, grandparents to dude ranches growing up, annually. Go do the whole, dude ranch experience, and never did it cross my mind. I mean, it was a blast. You enjoy it. You love being there and riding and the whole thing, but I never knew that that was a way to make a living, right? So now, like I was joking, on the wrong side of 40, here I am trying to learn to cowboy, in my 40s. So, yeah, I'm first generation, my wife's first generation, our parents, grandparents, like nobody had a farm or ranch. Now getting into the great grandparents, then yeah, they came from Nebraska, Kansas, had farms, et cetera, et cetera, but no ranching that I'm aware of. So it just kind of evolved.
You wish you would have started it earlier though.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, here I am, trying to learn it later in life, and that neck problem had me out for a little while, so I was kind of frustrated because I was trying to get into some roping and learn that, and it's just there's so many skills it takes a lifetime to master. Like I don't ever call myself a cowboy, and I kind of cringe when people do. I just refer to myself as a cattleman because those cowboys had just skills that were just nasty, right? I mean, the things you could do on horseback, things they could do with a rope, the lifestyle that they lived. I think few ranches today are still probably true cowboy, but I mean, you look at what they were doing in the early 1800s, it's mind blowing compared to, what we do today and call it cowboying. So,
Yeah. It's never too late to be who you could have been. I got that off your page, dude.
yeah, yeah,
I
I mean, I'm
love
telling
that.
you, I'm
I
telling you.
love that.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that. I think the most important thing is that you just kind of went for it. Like, who cares?
Hmm. Yeah, I
Who?
mean, you have to, right?
Yeah, you
That's where
do.
we were at. We wanted to raise our own food, and we couldn't find people that were doing it the way that we wanted to do it, and we just jumped into it. And then from there, it's like, you made the jump. Now what? It's a controlled descent. You got to figure it out. So as you grow with any business, there's struggles and challenges, and you just kind of make the most of it. And that's what that's what cowboying's about, right? Like it's not always the best situation, but you got to figure it out and get the job done.
What was the response of like family members, parents, maybe brothers and sisters, friends, when you said, "Hey, done with the fire department. This is what we're gonna do now." What was that like? Was everybody just like, "What the fuck?" Or
Well, the what the fuck piece came when we because first started doing it. I'd say by the time that I retired and we took it full time, we'd already been at it for a few years. So I think people were kind of like, good for you, good on you for continuing that and continuing to grow that. But initially they were like, what? I used to get a lot of ribbon from the guys at the firehouse. Uh, affectionately called me the YouTube cowboy, right? Because it was like every time I had a minute, every time we weren't running calls or training or doing whatever needed done, it was like I was watching videos because that's how you learn, right? I had books, I had periodicals that I'd sign up, magazines, and then just hammering away at YouTube, like, because you're trying to figure something out. How in the world do you get this done or that done? And so you go down that rabbit hole and you see 20 different ways to get it done, and then you just kind of figure out what fits your operation and go for it. But largely, the family and friends were. I don't think anybody was, against it or had any negative feelings. So everybody was pretty supportive.
was there a lot of was there any hesitation or fear when you first started doing this?
Uh, I'd say no because again, we started small, right? It was like our intent was initially to just get a little further away from the suburbs into a more rural setting, and we did that and gradually kind of learned how to do a little bit of cattle work. The paramedicine stuff comes in play very handy for doctoring cattle and doing the veterinary side of things. So I had a neighbor, he's a older gentleman. He's a fourth or fifth generation cattleman, and he lived across the way. And he had got cancer diagnosis, so he was a little laid up. And he had lived in Estes Park, which was about 40, 45 minutes from the property, here that he had. And so he would ask me, hey, can you go over and check the stock tanks? Or, hey, can you make sure they got hay or do this? So I started real gradual, just kind of doing chores for him. And then, every once in a while he had like a sick calf or something like that, and I'd help him doctor it up. So I learned little by little. And then that's at the point when the wife and I were talking. I said, hey, why don't we get a couple of our own? Finish fencing this pasture out here. We could put our own. So we did crawl before we walked, but I think um, now we're kind of at the oh fuck point because when you start to get a certain number of animals and a certain number of acreage, it's like we're at that tipping point where I wish I could hire a ranch hand, but there's no money to hire a ranch hand. So you're still rolling solo, but now that beast has grown into something where it's borderline, like, is this still manageable? Fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. So,
Well, you need to leverage one of these little social media ranch hands that somebody come work for you for free for a little while. I know a couple guys actually.
yeah, that'd be great. It's set up to where, it's a pretty smooth running operation, but if we're gonna branch out and keep growing it, it's gonna come to that, you know what I mean? So yeah, we'll have to talk about that and get some names. We get people reach out all the time, but I think we'd be paying like the big outfits, you'd be making $50 a day plus food, you know what I mean? So, that's there's a lot of these places I laugh, you look and you're like, and that's a lot of we could talk about that later, but that's a lot of the problem I think getting younger people into this industry, right? The pay is so low and you're working 16-hour days a week and it's just a grind, and then they're like, well, you could stay in this old fallen down camper, and you got barely enough to survive there. So
What's the most difficult part of like cattle ranching that people might overlook or oversee?
oh, I can speak for our operation, right? And this is again in the framework of first generation. So when I say first generation, I'm not trying to talk down upon people that are second, third, multi-generation, right? They have their struggles as well. Um, when I left the fire department, like most people, not a whole lot. I mean, you were LEO, right? So like you leave, you're like, there's not a lot of that. pension money. You can't pull it. You get hit with taxes. Didn't have a whole lot in savings. I didn't have this nest egg of like $250,000 in capital to go start my ranch. So all is well when you buy those first three steers and you put them out there on the grass that you have and, fill up a water tank, right? That's good. When it comes time to haul them, for processing, if you got to take them anywhere, you need that trailer. If you want that trailer, you need that truck. You know what I mean? And that is scalable with the size of your operation. So when you start to get up to like 50, 60 head of cattle or more, that F-150 bumper pull isn't going to cut it when you're hauling 8 to 10 steers in. So now you need that 25-foot trailer, that F-350, right? So that is the struggle. The first handful of years, I mean, it was like we take a loan, buy the cattle, you're paying leases to run the cattle on leased property, and then you sell the beef, you're stoked because you sold out, you add up the income and debt there, and you go, well, got enough to pay the bank loan off and no money to start again, right? So you take out another loan to buy more cattle. So it was just that kind of getting ahead of that cycle. And we're barely ahead of it, right? It still feels like we're keeping our head above water, but that's ranching. By and large, I think it's 85% of farmers and ranchers in this country rely on a second or third job just to get by. So someone in that household is working full time somewhere else just to make ends meet, which is it just it's crazy to me that the people that put food on your plate have to bust their butts that hard, but that's how it is. So it's not that we're doing something wrong. It's just that money piece, I think, is the biggest challenge. You know what I mean? And if you think about people that you know in ranching, I guarantee most of them that have these bigger ranches, they got the ranch through some other means, right? Like they're successful businessmen somewhere else. They got millions of bucks and they're like, I'm gonna buy this property and throw some cattle out there, and they have the nice equipment and all that. And they didn't get, not many of them, the minority of them maybe got there through ranching, but most of them had that money from something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really know the real story with the guys that I know because a few of the guys that I know that do kind of, your line of work are fourth, fifth, sixth generation. So who really knows?
Right.
I mean, I know that it was passed down and now it's their job now, but
Right.
um I'm always you seem passionate about this. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, I'm glad that still shows a little bit because I find myself being more and more jaded with the tougher and tougher times. But no, I was extremely passionate about it when I got into it. As far as the regenerative aspect and the animal stewardship, and really was trying to encourage everybody that would reach out. That it was possible to start as a first generation rancher. So I'd say I still have the passion for it. Yeah, it's just you get kicked in the teeth quite a bit, so it's hard to keep that smile sometimes. But we're not going to
Yeah.
quit. You know what I mean?
No, I can see that. I really enjoy just I'm kind of structuring this like an interview, peppering you with questions, but I'm just
That's fine.
curious, man, because I'm not, don't let the wild rag fool you, man. I'm not a fucking cowboy. I am not a rancher. Um, I'm just, I really enjoy talking to people and listening to people and learning from folks who are passionate and really good at what it is that they do. I'll go on YouTube rabbit holes, man, and watch restoration videos
Right.
of old cool unique timepieces and they turn them brand new again. These people are passionate about it. Um I like watching like musicians with drummers who will go on this one YouTube page and they'll play a song that they've never heard for this drummer and he'll try to play it as how he thinks it should be played.
Hmm.
I love watching people that are passionate about what they do. So, um anyways, kind of
Yeah.
long-winded here, but do you feel any pressure from being a first generation one? I'm assuming you'd like this to, go for multiple generations. And then two, from maybe some of the OGs that have been like fourth, fifth, sixth generation, because obviously you're pretty active on social media and whatnot. Do you get any backlash?
So kind of a two-part question there, I guess. Do
Yes.
we feel the first was, do we feel any pressure? The pressure, again, I'm kind of a nerd with the statistics here, but I read a lot about it. The pressure comes from knowing that this industry is in a decline. knowing that the industry as a whole is not healthy, and that comes from the average age of ranchers in this country being well above 60. So depending on the source, it's 60 to 65 years old for farmers and ranchers, right? The average age that shows whether it's a healthy industry is 35. So if it doesn't matter if it's nutritional coaching, right? If you average the ages out and it's over 35, not getting enough new people into the industry, right? So that, the cost of land is a huge barrier to entry, all the things we already discussed as far as equipment. So it's a tough thing to get into. So I don't put pressure on myself for that because, like you said, good on you for trying, right? I'm out there, the man in the arena, right? I'm out there
Hmm.
getting punched in the face, sweating, dirty, putting up the fight. Um, and then on the social media side of things, I always try to stay humble, and that's a different animal. That evolved kind of by happenstance, and then it's really become sort of a necessity to keep the doors open. But you'll get a few. It doesn't matter what you do, right? You're going to get a couple trolls on there throwing comments once in a while. But I'm very open. Like if you see me doing social media ads for like a gun company, man, I can shoot a gun. I'm no crack shot. Like I'm decent. I'm not trying to make myself look like some kind of tier one operator. When I'm on my horse, I'm advanced beginner to immediate intermediate level rider, right? Like I'm not trying to pretend that I'm some expert doing anything. And what people need to understand is that's modeling. That's doing paid content creation for social media, and we have the means to do that. And it's not hard work. And to be honest, that's where I'm able to keep the doors open. So, for example, and I spun off and actually started a media company so we could do more than just the Western, but just to kind of paint a picture, I like to find people in their element. So if I was doing something for like a fitness company, I would recruit you and be like, hey, Tyler, like we're going to follow you around, man. Just do your workout,
Yeah.
get nasty, slam your creatine and your pre and go for it and forget we're here. I'm not going to really ask you to do things over and over and over, like cut, do it again, take seven,
Yeah.
no,
Just
it's
go
just
about your day.
rip it. We're going to catch it. And so
Yep.
that's how the social media thing evolved is like the photographers, like we'll do a little huddle before we do what we do. And it's like, 9 times out of 10, we're out there doing actual ranch work. So it's like we're going to jump on horses, go grab these cattle, move them over here because we got to pull some off, take them to another property, go. And I forget they're out there. And that's usually when you catch the best content. Now, some of the stuff for more, product focused stuff, you need to kind of get the close ups and the stage shots and stuff. And that's fine. Again, it's modeling. People need to understand it's modeling. And I've been blessed to collab with a lot of bigger companies, and that's paying the bills. That's allowing me right now to keep the doors open to this ranch, or I wouldn't have the ranch. And a lot of people probably aren't familiar with what goes on in the cattle industry, but a couple years back, our system was structured as such that we would purchase 15 stalker calves, is what they call them, when they about the age you pull them off the mama's milk. They're 5, 6 months old, 500, 600 pounds, right? So they'll pull them off the mom. We would buy them at that age, and we raise them for about 2.5 years from that point on to get them to the weight that we process them for meat, and we would sell direct to consumer. So you'd be buying the quarters and halves or wholes. So that was our whole business plan. Well, a couple years back, those soccer calves went from like $700, $800, and that's for like your number one, like really good conformation, good looking animal, to about $2,000. And I just saw a couple articles this morning. I was reading through my emails, and they broke records again. So the cost of these animals right now is insane. So I can't even roll that over in the cost of my beef. People just wouldn't pay it. So we've kind of had to pivot and say, all right, well, I'm going to look for other means of income. We're going to just keep growing the herd. All the calves we have, we're going to hold back. If we have steers, great, we'll raise them. But now we have like a 3-year gap before we'll have production. And then it's going to be like, 3 animals and then 7 animals. And it's going to have to grow. And then we'll hold back all the heifers so we have more cows. So we're just growing the herd, searching for more land, and praying for opportunity. You know what I mean? So the modeling has been great, and the content creation has been great because without it, I wouldn't be ranching right now.
People can see that right away, like the transparency in the content. Where and even on this podcast, you're like, dude, it's fucking modeling. Like,
Right.
but it's also obvious that a lot of your shit isn't staged. I try to do the same stuff, right? Where a lot of times I'll just throw my camera to my wife, be like, hey, just press record.
Right.
Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me to turn sideways. Don't tell me to
Mhm.
say this. Just capture what I'm doing. And same
Yeah.
thing with I have a lot of buddies who are into film and photography and stuff. I don't have to tell those guys to do anything. I'm like, hey, here's the idea. I'm going to do this workout. Just capture it. I don't even know they're there. And that, like you said, ends up being kind of the best footage, the best photos, the best content in general because it's not sage. Is it modeling in a sense? Yeah, but you're just doing what you would normally do as if nobody else was there.
Right. Yep. Yep.
I think you guys are doing it right. How do I think everybody's always curious, everybody's trying to do something on social media. How do these brand deals, I call them brand deals, how do these, working with other companies, how do those come about for you? Are you the one reaching out or are these companies and brands being like, hey, I like your stuff. What do you think? Can we maybe make something happen? How does that usually work for y'all?
It's probably 60-40, 60% being me reaching out and starting the conversation, and 40% maybe they reach out, and then referrals from companies that I already work with. So, there's I mean, I find it a problem on social media, right? There's so much out there. It's just washed out. It'll blow your mind, right? If you try to sit there and go through everything. I mean, you can't even the doom scroll, right? The death scroll, Reddit, whatever. So even finding a lot of these brands would be impossible if it didn't if the what do they call it, the algorithm, right? It puts brands in front of you. So if you're interacting with like Western apparel brands, it'll push that stuff into your feed, and so you come across other brands that you're like, oh, I haven't seen that before, and you can shoot them a message, hey, just wondering if you guys would be interested in any content creation. We can do the Western, or we can do some other stuff. Like, here's a media kit. Let us know. And that behind the scenes stuff is probably the most painstaking because it takes forever, right? Like, that's why I was joking with you the other day. I was like, man, look at that. We hit it off and scheduled a podcast within 48 hours, right? Like, but some of these companies, I mean, you'll email back and forth for months before you get stuff lined up, or they might say like, we're good for now, but maybe we'll reach back out in winter, so it's like 6 months go by and you haven't heard from the company. So it's a grind there too, but I try to just keep it basically like an introduction, reach out, introduce yourself, tell them what you do, maybe circle back, follow up, but you know, it can get exhausting because there's just so much out there. So you got to kind of hone in on a few things that you want to work with and things that'll fit kind of what you do.
Yeah. Good on you. How did you learn how to do what you're doing? I know you said you're an avid YouTuber, but was there any books? Were you fortunate enough to maybe get a mentor in this game? How did you go about learning your line of work?
Really, there's a little bit of everything, from having the next door neighbor that kind of first introduced me to cattle and just basics, and then he was there for the first few years where I had those three steers, the first herd, if you will. I was able to kind of bounce some things off of him. And it's like any community. The more you get into it, the more connections you make. The more you kind of the more people sitting at your table that you can rely on. And so that grew. But by and large, I think it was reading books. There's tons of books out there that you can get and read, and then just following some bigger names, like Greg Judy, Joel Salatin, those kind of guys that are big into regenerative, through what they do, and their podcasts, right? Their YouTube channels, and then, like most things, it's just trial and error. You do something, you go, that was a complete shit show. And like you guys probably had an LEO, right? Just like in the fire service, like you have the after action reviews. You kind of sit down and go, all right, what went well? Well, this went well. Well, what went wrong? And then you say, okay, well, next time, what can we do to try to make it better, right? And then you try to implement those things. But a lot of times with ranching, it's hard because, like I said, it's like, well, if we had this $70,000 piece of equipment, it would be really easy. And you're like, well, yeah. Or maybe if we had another, six people helping or this or that. So, but the concept's the same. You just kind of debrief, learn from there, and just keep pushing forward. And it's that trial and error piece, I think, that helps you learn.
How long you been married, Josh?
Oh, my wife and I have been together for about 17, going on 18 years.
Okay. Well, you fall into the category of people that I like to ask this question to.
Oh,
What's the secret, man? 17 years is no small feat.
yeah. Especially these days, I know, right?
Yes.
Um, you got to find a wife that's really forgiving. That's probably the key piece. Uh, but no, jokes aside, tolerance. It's just in any relationship can be tough. So you just need to be able to communicate and kind of work through the bad times, because the good times are few and far between with stressful, life. And especially now we work together 24/7. So she's working at home. She was a teacher, but she left teaching to kind of do her side business, make her side business a full-time business. So she does that. And so we spend a lot of time together. And then so there's more opportunity for conflicts and things like that. So just being able to have those calm, honest conversations about, hey, that upset me because of whatever, and then work through it without people, putting ego first or getting angry. So I think that's the big thing in any relationship, right? Just being able to be open and honest.
What are the trials of working together? Like what do you guys deal with?
Yeah. Um, so we're very different in that I have that first responder mentality where I was used to working with a bunch of alphas that were equally driven to succeed and be number one, right? And so everybody, not that you're trying to, I don't want to say outdo, but you know how it is. You're kind of trying to outdo your buddies, but you're
Can't
also
talk you can't talk to her like you talk to the boys.
exactly. So like, especially when it's working cattle or doing something, you like if you're doing a search of a room, right, or something, you get a call and doors open, you guys are clearing a house. Like a lot of times you guys have trained, right? Your partner knows exactly what to do. He knows what you're doing the same time you know what you're doing, and he reacts to it, and you guys mirror each other, work together. Same thing in the fire service or military or whatever, right? So she wasn't brought up in that environment. So I'm kind of expecting her to read my mind, or like, well, she should be doing this. Like I shouldn't have to tell her this. So I have to really tone that back, right? I have to really throttle that down. And then she's very analytical and kind of step by step, and needs to be shown something a bunch to kind of improve upon it. So that can be frustrating when shit hits the fan. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, if you show someone something, the next time it happens, like they better have that shit down, but it's not always that way with the spouses. So you just got to have a little bit of patience and tolerance.
I was telling my wife something the other day because she helps with some behind the scenes stuff for what I do, content and
Mm.
whatever. And I was like, Morgan, it's not a mistake. You didn't know.
Right.
It's not a mistake if you didn't know. You didn't know like that it needed to be done in this particular way. I never showed you or I never told you.
Right.
It's only a mistake if I teach you and then you fuck it up again.
Right.
Now it's a mistake
Right.
because you're supposed to know this, but you didn't
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Like you can't hang somebody out to dry for that. But that's I'm used to talking to my coworkers back when I used to do LEO and or police work, I should say, and then my clients, I talk to them a certain way, and then I sometimes find myself talking to my wife that way, and that is not a fucking good thing,
Right.
especially when you got all these pregnant hormones working too. So
Yeah.
it is a bad deal for me, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just comes with that, being able to read people and having that kind of social intelligence. And when you're in the heat of the moment, trying to pin a calf down or doctor an angry cow or this or that, and they bust out and get free, or, something happens and you only had one shot to kind of get it, those things, it's not the time or the place, right? You got to kind of just ride the wave you're on, work it out later. So and by all means, man, I'm still, but we just were working through something yesterday. So don't think that we got it down, but it's, you know, you got to keep coming back to the table and having the conversation. So.
Yeah. How did you get her to go all in on this? Because I'm sure that was a quite a few long conversations at the dinner table.
Yeah, women are more pragmatic, I think, in general. And she was working down in Denver at the time, and I had a friend that lived up this way, and we used to come up and visit them. It's an hour drive, so we'd usually stay. And then I asked her, we made some pretty decent money quickly because Colorado's exploding. But I said, why don't we sell this place? We can go get some land, because everybody always talks about that. I feel like, right? Like, oh, I want to get some land. They don't even know why. They just want to get some land, kind of move out of the suburbs or city and get some land. So we were like, let's just get some land. And so we wound up looking around up this way, and we purchased, and she was down for it. So she agreed to, and she had to switch school districts, so she had to apply for a completely different job. She got it, it worked out. But it's like since then, we've both been on the path of like, well, I had to push her into the ranching too, because she was like, "What are we going to do with 3 steers?" So it's every bit along the way, I've kind of been the one to kind um, to initiate that idea, and then it's like she runs with it, right? Like I'm like, let's get a couple steers for beef. Now we have ducks, chickens, lambs, goats, the whole nine yards. And she's she does the bacon sourdough bread, so that whole cliche thing that's going around social media. But it's been great. And now we're at a point where we're like we want to even be more rural, right? Like we want to be even further away. Um, Something with that little bit of isolation, where you don't see houses right out your window, or you just have a lot of open space between you and the neighbor. So kind of where we're at now is looking for that next step.
So
Grateful to
she's
be where we are, don't get me wrong.
yeah, so you'd say she's completely bought in then to the lifestyle.
But yeah, it's sold. I mean, I think after those first few years, that it's yeah, there's no going back. You know what I mean? And it's hard. It's still hard to this day. She actually has a way bigger social media account than I do, and she posts a lot of, she's a teacher by trade, so her content is very
Educational.
informative and instructional. Yeah, it's like a PowerPoint presentation. She goes through and kind of touches all the bases, but she gets a lot of blowback from vegans and meat eaters alike, which is crazy. And the reason I was bringing that up is I was going to say we had steers, and then I think the second or third year I bought a couple sheep. Long story short, sheep and cattle are affected by different parasites, so they can actually eat the worms that affect the other one and digest them. So it kind of sanitizes the pasture without need for any of the chemical stuff. So I bought them to put out there and thought, we'll keep some sheep, help with worms, and we'll have lamb. And I did not think it was going to go well when we processed those first ones, but she's been on board, and damn near every time we haul animals in for processing, we're praying over them. She cries. I get teary eyed. I mean, we're so grateful for these animals. And I don't know if do you hunt?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like, when you're out hunting and you shoot an animal, that's a surreal experience. Like it's hard to explain to somebody that hasn't done it. Like when I took my first cow elk, I was so grateful for just that life. It wasn't even like the meat. I can go buy meat, right? Like I'm not surviving out there, right? It's I can buy meat at the store, but it was just like that animal's life for my life kind of exchange, right? So now if you can imagine, having a calf that maybe is struggling, or the mom's struggling to give birth to a calf, and you're intervening, and you deliver that calf and you nurse it back to health, or take care of whatever the ailment was, and you watch that thing grow for the next 2.5, 3 years, and it's always the ones you spend more time with that are closer to you. They'll come, like we have cattle that come up to you, pet them like dogs. So you have that 3 years, and then you schedule that date. You say, hey, on the 13th of this month, like this guy's going in, right? And you load them up a few days ahead of time, kind of pin them in a closer in area. They're going in, they know they're going in, and you take them in, and it's like that is hard, that is
They
difficult.
do?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah, it's a surreal thing. Yeah, I've heard some ranchers say that they will have animals out in a pasture like that, and they'll know which ones they're taking in, and when they go out, it's almost like that animal separates itself from the herd. So I would have to see that firsthand to believe it, but I have heard that in more than one account. So yeah, and we keep them very low stress. I mean, we're not out there like the movies, like, yeah, yeah, cracking bull whips and just screaming, and it's a dust panic, storm, and, get them onto a trailer and haul them off. No, we keep them like super calm. We only work with processors that have good handling skills, and ensure that they stay calm, because we don't want them all, full of adrenaline before they're getting processed. So, we go to great lengths to find places that are respectful of that end of life procedure as well. So I think it shows in the meat. But anyway, yeah, it's hard, and I didn't think she'd be able to overcome that. And luckily, her and my son did. And yeah, I had mentioned the blowback she gets through social media. She gets way more than I do, and a lot of it, if you can believe it, it comes from people that eat meat. Like they will say, "I eat meat, but I don't pretend to love the animal." And stuff like that, and they'll like get mad at her for being compassionate, or quote pretending to care about that life. And I'm like, man, people are ignorant, right? They just do not get it. Like, I would think that we're the gold, and I say this humbly, I would think we are the gold standard. Like we treat these animals like pets almost, right? Like we always joke, my wife and I, like we're probably in the wrong line of work. There's probably we probably could be more successful if we didn't care as much. But when you're a smaller operation, you spend more time with those animals. You develop, I think, closer bonds, and for good or for better or for worse, right? Like they're easier to handle, they're not as stressed, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's people that eat meat and they have like this disdain that we have this connection with these animals, and it just blows me away. I don't understand that. So
It's comical.
it
It
can
it
be
really
very.
it really is, man, because guys in y'all's line of work and you know people in I guess my quote unquote line of work, we do a lot of hunting and all these guys like we seriously care about the animals and people think that well then why are you out killing them? It's like you're just kind of missing the fucking point. Like
Yeah,
you're missing the boat here big time. It's just it's hard to explain and because like you said it's one of those things that you can't really articulate until you've either done it or been a part of it. I had a
right.
guy few falls ago who I got to be a part of um his first deer,
Awesome.
and it was just he came up on him and just like put his hand on the hide, and it was just like super thankful and like damn there, he was praying over the animal. Like it was just cool, man. Like you could
Right.
tell he did not take the situation lightly. Made a great shot, but was just extremely thankful because he got to feed his family. So it was it's special. It's really fun to be a part of those moments.
Oh, for sure. That reverence is something you really can't explain to people that don't get. I mean, it time and time again. Like I said, people they go to the store, or they don't even have. I mean, you don't even have to go to a store, right? You can Grubhub or order, your groceries from the store. They
That
are in.
came from somewhere,
Yeah,
Josh.
but
That
they don't. But there's there's no connection though. That's the funny thing. So we
zero.
have we have a niece that's in college. She's 19, and she came over and was visiting, and my wife offered her something to drink, and one of the items on the list of drinks that she offered was, well, we have milk, and then she said, but it's raw milk, and she was kind of trying to like warn her. I think it tastes the same, only better. It's not from ours, it's from a neighbor, but I told her, I said, you shouldn't have said anything. She probably wouldn't have noticed the difference, right? But she tried it and, agreed it was maybe a little different. But she goes, I never stop to think about when I'm drinking milk that it comes from a cow. And I'm like, wow, because people are that way. They just get some milk. It comes in a carton or a plastic jug, and you put it on your cereal or whatever you're doing with it. And that's about the extent of what the vast majority of people put into that product or where it came from. You know what I mean? They don't care how that animal was raised. They don't care if it ever sees daylight. They don't care if it stands around in a pile of its own shit all day long. Is mistreated, abused. They don't. They just want cheap milk. You know. So it's unfortunate, but it's a fact. So
It is. I kind of want to go back to your wife's involvement with everything.
yeah.
Would you be living this life if she was not like for it? If she'd have been like, I don't want to do this. Like we have good lives. I'd like you to get another just, kind of 9 to 5 job. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I love teaching, blah, blah, blah. If she would have gave you a lot of pushback, do you feel like you would have just said, fuck it and still went for it? Or would you have like went, and done what she kind of wanted to do?
No, I think it definitely took the both of us. Um, I didn't really like. I kind of explained how this evolved over a period of years where we moved up here with no intention of ranching and buying livestock, and then we did, and then we had no intention of really doing that. I don't want to say commercially, but for a living. So all of those decisions were made, based on her being ready to cinch up and ride that ride. Um, and she was scared to death. I say cinch up. She was scared to death of horses. Like her mom would put the fear of death of her, with horses. Like she never wanted to ride horses. So literally, when we started leasing property in the ranch we're at, it's a dude ranch, and just using some horses to go move cattle. I mean, she was terrified just to get on a horse, and does a lot better now. So without her being along, I don't think I could do it because, like I said, I can't do it all myself, and I sure as hell can't afford to pay somebody else. So that's a necessity, but also just the support, right? Like if she was like, I don't want to have anything to do with livestock or animals, I don't think that the journey would be as special. You know what I mean? It'd be like trying to explain to a non-hunter what it feels like to harvest your first deer or elk, right? Like it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be as special. So yeah, definitely needed her to be along for the ride.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I always so I coach guys. I coach a lot of guys all over the place, and I'll tell them all the same freaking thing where, a lot of these guys come to me trying to lose a substantial amount of weight. Okay. That requires eating, real people food, not what your kids are eating. Like you need to eat hearty meals, good food.
Right.
And I'll always ask them, hey, does your wife take care of herself? Like how does she do? Well, yeah or no. And it's like, man, your wife does not have to be 1000% bought into kind of your goals and your journey. She doesn't need to be, on the same page necessarily, but she at least needs to be in the same book.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
does, because you and I, we can
100%.
train all day every day, but if you get home from work every day and you got a big old pile of pasta and
Right.
in a cabinet full of Cheez-Its and fucking
Right.
snickerdoodles and all this shit, like,
Yeah.
we're kind of kissing our sister here, my man.
Hmm.
So she
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily have to be on the same page, just in the same book
Right.
somewhere. And eventually, she's gonna be completely bought in at some way or some time and point here. Um, that's kind of why I asked that. So I know you kind of see that too, where obviously your wife's completely all in, which is, makes things kind of a lot easier for your situation, right? You don't have to
Right.
walk on eggshells. You don't have to make her do anything or be anybody that she's not, etc. So,
Right. No, and then there's that resentment that builds, I think, if they don't really want to be a part of it. So it just wouldn't have gone as far as it has, because let's see, from 2016 until 2019, when I actually retired, that 3 year period, I'd go work 48. You're familiar with the 48-96 schedule. So I'd work 2 full days. So I'd drive down to Denver, work for 48 hours straight, and then have 4 days off. And so that 10 days a month roughly that I was at work, she was it, so she'd have to go check on the animals or, take care of the ones at home, do all the stuff solo. So, and take care of the kid, so,
yeah.
she had her hands full, but, if she wasn't in for that ride, it would have ended a long time ago, I think.
How far are you guys from Denver right now?
It'd take me to get to like downtown Denver about an hour without traffic. If there's traffic, probably an hour 15, hour and a half, depending on how bad the traffic is.
How long? Hour and a half?
Yeah, hour and a half with bad traffic. Yeah.
Okay, okay, you kind of cut out there for a second.
Sorry.
When was the last time y'all? Do you ever like go downtown and grab a bite to eat, or like when was the last time y'all went on like a date night in like a city?
Well, we'll go to Fort Collins, which is only, that's where Colorado State University is. It's about 25, 30 minutes, from where we're at. So we'll try to make it a point to go to a steak restaurant there that we enjoy and like to go to. That's kind of our spot. So we'll go in there, maybe once a month, try to just have dinner and a drink and, relax a little bit.
Okay. What
But other than
bothers you
that,
about Yeah, what bothers you about society maybe when you guys are out and just doing your own thing or maybe doing some people watching? That's one of my favorite pastimes.
yeah.
What kind of bothers you?
It's funny you ask that because I think that's sort of the driving factor for us to want to kind of get further out of town. It's almost like I guess you could liken it to the Matrix, right? It's like when you start ranching and you live a more kind of intentional lifestyle like that, and you're more in tune with the seasons and the weather and just all the little things. I think you just view things differently. So when you go back into the city, it's just it feels foreign. It feels like this is not how we were supposed to live, right? Like people, when we have visitors, we have followers that are local or customers, and they come out to see our property. I mean, they love it. We're a little bit in the country, so we got to remember, like I said, we're blessed. It's great, even though we want to be further out. People come out and they see this and they love it. And I think there's something inside most people that kind of yearns for that. I don't know. Maybe when you're younger, you enjoy being in the city and being in close proximity to everything, but it feels so artificial now. Like none of that matters that even 9 times out of 10, when we go do something like that, we're like, yeah, I could have cooked a steak at home and I make a better old fashioned. So, we kind of, I think we'd be okay heading into town, once a month with some big coolers and shopping for the month and then heading back to our little piece of heaven here and then not leaving for a month. That'd be ideal.
Yeah. I'll never forget, man. We moved here. We're out in Montana. We moved here from Nashville, obviously a really fucking big city.
Oh, yeah.
And we moved here, I don't know, we were probably here 6 months to a year before we jumped on another plane and traveled somewhere else. and I think we ended up going back to Nashville to like visit friends or whatnot. And we landed back in Nashville. I got off that damn airplane and started walking through that airport, dude.
Right.
And I had never experienced anxiety like that before in my
Yeah.
life. So many people,
Yeah.
like, just all over the place in their own little worlds, bumping into you on their cell phones.
Right.
Fuck, like I was like, man, I do not miss this one single bit. And it sounds like you kind of experienced that too, based on
Yeah.
kind of where y'all live.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it's like the Matrix, man. You just see it and you go, this is, you just want to scream at people and be like, snap out of it. Go sit under a tree and listen to the birds for an hour, right? Like just relax. So
Yeah, yeah.
crazy times, man. What brought you from, if I may, what was the jump from Nashville to Montana? Why Montana?
I wanted to come out here and hunt.
Montana, where do we go? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah,
Say no
yeah,
more.
yeah. Everybody always laughs when I say that, but it's God honest truth. I always had aspirations to come out and hunt Western big game, and just I ended up getting a job out here, and obviously I don't do that anymore. But yeah,
Yeah. Now
that's why
there's
I
a
wanted.
good spouse to be able to just say, I want to go hunt big game. We're going to
w-
Montana.
I wasn't really that transparent at the time,
Right, right.
but
Yeah.
it was kind of one of those things where I didn't need to say that. Like she knew the deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she knew the deal, and it we wouldn't have gone if she wouldn't have signed off on it. Kind of going back to previous topic here, but I wouldn't have. We'd still be there.
We're at Montana?
We're in eastern Montana.
Eastern Montana. Okay.
Yeah,
How bad are the winters? Because we always kick
dude,
around like
they
Wyoming or
ain't.
Montana.
They're not shit,
Yeah.
Josh. They're not. I'm from Michigan. My wife's from Ohio. I think the winters are worse there.
Yeah.
I think it's colder there. I think they get more snow up north. Um, because of the humidity, man. Like 32 degrees
Oh,
here
yeah.
is a
Yeah.
hoodie. 32 degrees in Michigan, where I'm from, I mean,
Yeah.
you're
You're
fucking
losing an
cold,
arm.
dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're fucking cold.
Right.
So, I mean, to be transparent though, like 4 days ago, we got dumped on like damn near a foot of snow, and it was April 15th. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But that lasted. They say it's kind of funny. You don't like the weather here, you just wait 20 minutes, and
Right.
today it's 60, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Colorado's
yeah,
like that too. I just can't stand the wind. Where we're at northern Colorado, I know Wyoming gets a bad rap for wind, but it's like anytime, especially spring, you get a moderate temperature day and it's nice. The wind will just wreak. I'm talking like, 40-mile-an-hour gust wind, and it's all day. And so that's a nuisance. But
well, I can
yeah,
tell because every time I think you get a good wind blowing, we get a little static here.
probably. Sorry about that. Yeah. Well, again, we're on that satellite internet. That's what I told you. We're kind of, we're not. I need to look at Starlink or something, maybe. But I
Yeah.
hope it doesn't mess up the audio on the
No,
podcast.
well, if we it wouldn't be the first time we got kicked off. If we get kicked off, we'll just boot it back up. It's funny though. It gets nasty windy here too. Like my wife loves Livingston. Are you familiar with Livingston?
Yeah.
Basically between where I live and Bozeman. And there's actually a scene in Yellowstone. You've probably seen the show. I don't really watch that kind of shit anymore now that we live out here. It's kind of
Right.
a weird like fantasy type thing. When you don't live here, you always watch shit like that,
Yeah.
and we don't watch it anymore because it's just totally not even fucking relatable.
Fair
Um,
enough.
but there's actually a scene in Livingston. Long story short, that fucking place, we love it, but it is a gosh darn wind tunnel, dude. It is the windiest freaking town I've ever been in. Does not matter if it's winter, July, May. It is just nasty. You can't even
Yeah,
walk
that's
around.
miserable.
Miserable.
No thanks.
Miserable. Okay. Where do you want to take it from here? I had a couple notes jotted down, but um
Keep it rolling. What do you got?
I don't know. I don't know. I think you mentioned you had a boy, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Well, no longer a boy.
A
He
young
just
man.
turned 19 here in April, first part of April, and just enlisted for the United States Army. And
You gotta be
he
a
has a
proud
contract.
daddy.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
he did pretty good on all the testing, so they gave him a contract to go to RASP. So he's going to jump into that Ranger Assessment School as soon as he gets out of boot camp, and that's kind of where he's wanting to go. So he signed up, yeah, for infantry. They kicked him around in all kinds of different positions, and that's kind of what he had his heart set on going in. So that's what he circled back to. So he's gonna ship out here in August.
Where's he going? Down south?
Georgia.
Georgia? Okay. Yep. Yep. What's that? Fort
Is it?
Bragg or Campbell? I
I was
can't
just
keep
gonna
them
say
straight.
brag. Yeah. I'm not too
Okay.
familiar with all that stuff, but yeah, I know it's
Okay.
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Um, Mama on board with that too?
More so than probably your average mom. I'm impressed how she took it. I think, for a lot of moms, it's tough. They don't want to see their kids do anything that's going to put them in harm's way. I don't know if she ever blinked when I'd go off and fight fires, or be dealing with car accidents on the highway in the middle of the night. But that's her baby. So when he's anything military, she was trying to get him to get some kind of desk job or something. And so infantry is not exactly what she wanted to hear, but she's been supportive, which I think is huge. And as a father, I look at it as like, how could I expect someone else to send their kid, if, when you're talking about like, worst case scenario, there's a war and your kid's got to go fight in a war. I mean, nobody wants to see that, but I don't know as a parent how you could sit back and how could I say, well, Tyler, you send your son. My son's more valuable, or I love him more, or whatever the case may be, right? It just doesn't make sense. It's like if that shit happens, which we pray it doesn't. That's a decision that he's made, and I think that's part of that's a huge part of parenting. It's just you kind of direct them a certain way, but like ultimately they need to make their own decisions, and it's not a bad decision, but so you should support them and wish them well and be there for them, and that's about all you can do.
I think you're almost doing him a disservice too if you're not on board with it because he's going to be under some strenuous training
Oh yeah,
and he's going to be away from home and there's always going to be that thought and that feeling while he's away. I mean, Georgia's a long way from freaking
yeah,
Colorado. There's always going to be that thought in the back of his mind where like he knows that he doesn't have that approval. Therefore,
right,
it's going to take away focus from the job at hand, which is getting through the training, becoming a freaking young, responsible freaking member to society, the
yeah,
discipline, um, all of that. And that's the same probably with your marriage too. If your wife's not completely on board, um, you might go out and do something anyways, but in the back of your mind, you're like, fuck.
yeah.
Same thing like with a hunting trip or whatever. If
Yeah,
my
because I
old,
was just gonna say that. I was
yeah,
just gonna say that.
yep, yep. If she's like, if she's not trying to kick me out of the door, I usually don't go because I'm just not gonna fucking enjoy myself, dude.
Right.
Like
I
I
was listening
can't.
to that podcast. You and Anthony were talking about that. You said, you feel like a schmuck if you left her with a to-do list and, she's there for a week with the kid, right? So
Yeah,
you gotta set them up for success. And that's exactly right. Because you don't want to be sitting up there on the mountain, just glassing a slope. And you're just like, oh man, she's getting her, kicked in and
it's
just
terrible.
hating me for it. Right. So it's bad enough you leave. And even if they're understanding, most wives are probably still in the back of their mind, like, oh, here he goes again. So
Yep,
yeah, it's
yep.
one of those things.
It's terrible. And I know a lot of the guys that listen to this shit. Tons of them are hunters, and tons of them are in your line of work too. But I know they all can relate because like 2 years ago, I got quite a bit of pushback for me going out, and I went out a lot. Like I won't lie about it. Like
Yeah.
I went out a lot, probably a
And do
little
you
bit
have
more
kids?
any day.
Okay. So not
Any
yet. So yeah, that adds another wrench in the
correct,
yeah.
yeah, correct. That's why I'm not out spring bear hunting right now. It's
Right.
because this can happen any day. So I'll take that trade off any day of
Yeah.
the week for the
Yeah.
record. But
For sure.
um, kind of to my point, man, I was out a lot a couple 2 years ago and like had a decent season. Like, did okay. But then last year, my wife's like, you need to go. You need to go. I was like, should I go hunting the next 2 days? Go. You need to go. I had a great season, right? Where I was just like free. I was fully immersed in what I was doing, no distractions, wasn't worried about getting that text off or, whatever. I knew she was taken care of. Um, but I also set her up for more success than I did, in previous years. And
Exactly.
like anything, man, you just fucking, you live and you learn and, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely, I think, going to play a role with him shipping off to the army, right? Like he's been excited about a few things already, so he'll call me or text me. And like, if you got parents that aren't on board or don't give a shit, that next, I don't even know how many months he's going to be gone, right? Because going straight from boot camp to the Ranger School, I mean, he could be gone for 9 months. We might not see him. So, if you're away from the two biggest fans you have, because your girlfriend may be happy for you, but she's going to be kind of pissed off you're gone too, or your friends are kind of good job, but they're not really there to to celebrate the wins or to be there if you got a rough day, like parents are, you know. So having parents that are in your corner's got to make that easier. I would just assume, you know.
Yeah, without question. Is he a only child?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Take me back 19 years ago. That baby comes out. What was that feeling like for you? And yeah, that's really my question. What did that feel like, and how did you learn how to kind of parent? Because that's going to be reality for us here any
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. I'm still learning to parent, brother. I'm still learning how to parent. Um, one thing I'll say, do you know if you're having a boy or a girl?
Boy.
Boy. Yeah. Um, well, I guess boy or girl, right? Like they're gonna learn based off of what you do, not what you say, right? So when my son got old enough that I saw him like throw a Zen in or something like that, and you're just like, damn it, like or when they swear or something like that, it's hard because they're always watching, right? They're always watching, always learning. And being my first, I didn't have experience as a dad, right? Like it's funny with ranching, you'll sit down and you'll watch a billion YouTube videos and try to figure it out. But like with having a kid, you're so busy and you look like a younger guy too. So I had my son when I was 26. I had just got on with the fire department a few years before. Eric and I weren't married yet. I mean, I'm 45 now. I'm still trying to figure my shit out, right? So at that age, man, you're so busy living your life, right? Like you have hobbies like hunting and the podcast and work and trying to keep the wife happy. It's like you feel so spread thin. Like when a kid comes, I think my advice to you would be very intentional because that everybody says time flies. It does. I can't believe my kid is 19 and joining the army. I'm like, holy shit. And my wife said, do you remember, like she'll pull up a photo that pops up on that iPhone thing. She was just doing this yesterday. She said, oh, look at that. Like he was maybe like 5 or 6 sitting on my lap at our old house. And I'm like, damn, that seems like it's like you don't even remember it. It was so long ago, right? So the time flies by. Be intentional, be there, include your kid. That's one thing I did do well. I included my son in everything I did. Like I was getting my pilot license at the time. I'd strap him in the back of the Cessna. I took him flying, took him mountain biking, took him fishing, took him camping, took him hunting. Like everything that I did, he was right there with me. And I wanted to expose him to all those things because I didn't do a lot of that growing up. My dad basically just worked. Um, so yeah, just appreciate that time, man, because it's just crazy how fast it goes. Crazy how fast it goes.
Yeah, you're not the first one to tell me that. I have a kind of a newer friend over the past 6 months or so who I really admire, and his wife and their two girls, and they do everything together, every single thing, every trip, even business meetings. Like they're homeschooled, so they do everything together, and you can just tell how tight knit they are, and not only that, but how respectful these kids are, and they're young. But it's really admirable, and that's something I think we're definitely going to focus on because, you know, my old man, he took me everywhere as well. We
Hmm.
traveled a ton of places. He always told me, there's more to life than Main Street. And he took me all
Yeah,
over the place. And I feel like that's kind of why we've moved around a little bit because I know that there's a lot more to offer in the world than kind
sure.
of, Ridge Road where I'm from originally. So,
Right, right. Yeah, most, I think what I see is most of my friends that have that first child, they, they kind of like circle the wagons, man, and they like
what do
stop
you mean
living.
by that?
Well, like I'm not saying keep well, like we don't party. I'm not saying go out and party, but like you'll try to reach out to people and be like, yeah, you guys want to come over for dinner, or you guys want to do this, or you want to do that. You try to reach out to people, and they're just like, well, no, the kid's got a nap time at this time, or we got to be here by the, they just they become like they disappear. They go like off grid with the kid. I'd rather see the parents like you're talking about with your friend, where it's like they do everything with the kids, right?
Yeah.
Like you can take kids anywhere, man. Like you can still go out and go live your life and do things, take kids with you. But a lot of people, I think with that first kid, they're just like super, focused on, staying home, staying with, which I just said, spend time with your kid. Yes. But like, don't let it slow you down. Keep living your life, expose those kids to everything. Like they're fine, right? They're going to be okay. They would throw kids in wagons a couple hundred years ago and take them across the country, so they'll be all right, man. Take them hunting, take them doing whatever you're doing. If you're traveling, take them with you. Not a big deal.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's great advice. essentially what you're saying is you've noticed a lot of people just kind of putting their life completely on pause.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's really no need. I mean, like you can still go and visit friends. You can still go visit family. It's, the kids are fine. They're gonna do whatever you do. So, like your friends that are traveling for work, why can't you take your kids with you,
Yeah.
Especially if you and your wife work together, that's perfect. You don't need to like put all those things off or, reschedule things to do from home. Like go get it. Kids will be fine. Probably be better off for it.
Hmm. Do you have a bunch of friends, or you kind of keep a tighter knit circle?
Less and less the older I get, man.
Can you say
You know
that
what I
again,
mean?
please?
Yeah, so less and less friends the older I get, but the friendships I think are more meaningful, to be honest.
Why do you think that's the case in terms of less and less friends the older you get?
If I had to pick one thing, I'd say it's probably like you and I were talking about marriage. Relationships take effort. It doesn't matter the relationship, right? Like if you and I are going to build a friendship, I can't be the only one calling you or like asking you to go on a hunt or hey, let's go shoot our bows or constantly reaching out to you. Like it takes effort on both sides. And then the older you get, it's not just me and my buddy Tyler are going to go hang out and grab a beer because we're both some single dudes and we got the weekends off every weekend. It's like now you have so many more things vying for your time. You got your spouse you got to take care of. You got your career. You got your, training that you do to stay fit. Whatever other hobbies you have and responsibilities you have, kids. When the kids get older, right? You got two, three kids and they're age 5 to 9 and they're all in a different sport. You got those things. So I think the older you get, the harder it is to set that time aside. And so I think naturally, and I don't think it's a bad thing really. I mean, you still talk to people, but like you just don't interact with them as often in the flesh. You know what I mean? Because it just almost becomes too difficult. If you're 30 years old and you got 20 friends that you see once a month, I mean that's a lot of time, right? So
It's a
then the
lot of
older you,
effort. It's a lot of
yeah,
effort too, Josh. I mean,
yeah,
extreme amount of effort, man.
yeah,
Because I take my friendships extremely seriously.
right,
And their work,
right,
their work, they're just like a marriage. I mean, they require
exactly,
a lot of work.
yep, yeah. Well, to be like a good friend, to be a meaningful
Correct.
friend,
Yeah,
right?
no, like I'm not
Not
just
just
gonna
a friend like
half-ass
a
it.
Facebook friend, yeah,
No, no, I got a ton of those.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
But
someone that
those
you'd call if you needed some shit. You know what I mean? Like those get less and less as the days go on. But like I said, I feel like you wind up with a handful of friends, but they're good friends, and that's okay. You know,
yeah,
not that the other friends are less important. It's just you find out who's on that same level you are with that being intentional with time because you have less of it to give, and so do they.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we've made it a point. Um, I've been making it a point for the past few years, but I think my wife's finally kind of bought in over the past few months of, you don't have to answer every phone call. You
Right.
don't you don't have to answer every text message. Especially from people that you just simply have not heard from in a very, very long time.
Right.
You don't have to answer every direct message. Um, it's just a time suck, man. It
That's
it, it,
huge.
it is like I'll be honest. I'll call some buddies. I do a lot of my phone calls in the vehicle when I'm traveling.
Yep. Same.
I'll think of somebody randomly. I'm gonna shoot them a call, and let's say they don't answer, and they call me back an hour later, and I'm already to my destination. I won't even
Yep.
pick it up. You fucking missed your shot.
I
you
know.
know,
I know.
that's
But
kind
that's
of
the
what it is.
truth, man.
It is.
That's the truth, and I think that's the difference when you were asking about the feeling of going into town. I feel like that's that mindset, right? Like we're not in a tribe anymore where like you and me go off hunting and the women take care of the kids and everybody's got that tight knit and there's only 100 of us in that band or whatever, right? Like it's not like that. Everything's so spread thin, and the social media thing really perplexes me because I just had this conversation the other day with my wife. As a matter of fact, I said, "Don't you think?" It's like I don't know if narcissistic would be the word, right? But let's just say like I think I have like 17,000 something followers. Why do I not follow that same amount of people, right? Like because my life's cooler than yours. Like you're boring. I don't want to follow you, but you follow and support me, or like you know what I mean. Like I feel like it should be mutual, like one for one. Like if you're following me and supporting me and liking the things that I'm filming or posting or whatever, shouldn't I? You know what I mean? Shouldn't I be as that should be reciprocal? Like I should be. thumbs up and you and your kid out for a walk or something, like whatever you're posting. But that's not practical. You can't follow 17,000 people. You can't even respond, like you said, a few dozen DMs a day. I mean, otherwise you start just going through and thumbs up in our heart and everything, which makes me feel like a jerk too, because someone will type like a paragraph and then you feel obligated to respond with that or more. So yeah, it's a weird thing. And granted, like, they're not true friends. You've never met most of those people in person, but it just is a weird dynamic with your time and how you spend it.
Yeah, I'll just be a lot more blunt than you, but I just don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck what you. I just don't give a fuck what you're doing. I appreciate the support. I usually thank people for the support.
Right.
But like I don't know you.
Right.
I don't.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't have
No,
time to see
yeah.
how you're living your life.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. You'd never be able to do what you're doing if you were trying to keep up on what they're doing. It's just, that's what I mean. It's a weird thing.
It
It's
is.
a totally weird thing, but
It is. I used to
totally
do that when
relevant.
I first started my page. I try to hit everybody with a follow back, and there's
Yeah.
still times where I get somebody pop up on my page, and I'll click their
Who's this?
page. I'm like, who the fuck is this? And I follow them. I'm like, well, not anymore. Who the fuck are you? I don't know you.
I'll know what's up when I don't have a follower from Nock Performance here next week. That's funny.
No, no, I'm not
That's
gonna do you like I know you now.
funny. Yeah. No,
Uh,
it's the way it is, man. Like you said, it's just yeah.
I don't
Social
know,
media.
man. It's a dangerous, dangerous game. It is, and I always I find it it's I find it not funny, but it's unique when guys in your line of work are doing it. Because not a lot of you are. Maybe that's more of the fourth and fifth generation guys who just don't give a fuck, and it's kind of whatever. Um, but
That's what
like
I
you,
wish I could be though.
dude,
Honestly.
same,
I mean,
same.
I'll find out about something like through a friend or come across someone. And I'm like, man, there's a 15,000 acre ranch like not even an hour from here, and they're running thousands of cattle, and they're branding hundreds of them and this and that. And I'm like, I gotta get in with these guys so I can go get some actual like hands on cowboy work because you got to get in those situations to practice those skills. And you're thinking, how come I never heard of these guys? Well, because they're not out there on social media, but
Hmm?
yet they're making a living ranching. And it's like you said, they don't. They're older. It's not their jam. And my wife's really good about being like, "Oh, we got to get some content," or "I got to get some content," and we kind of have that uh, butting of heads once in a while because I'm like, I just want to be here with my animals. I just
Yes.
want to ride my horse. Like today, I don't give a shit. But then you feel like, well, I got to videotape this because otherwise people are going to think I'm a cowboy if I'm not out horseback riding every day, right? So you got to get the like selfie where you're on the horse or, doing something so people think. And, my wife's in the mindset of like, you just got to show up. You just got to kind of show them what you're doing every day at the ranch. And I'm like, God, it's exhausting.
I went through the
That's the
same fucking
opposite of
shit
why I want to
yesterday.
do this work.
Yeah, I went through the same shit with my wife yesterday. I was calling all my guys on Sundays. We do check-ins, and she's like, "You want me to set up the camera, get some content?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "No, I just want to be like
So,
fully
yeah,
in
you want,
in
yep.
in tune with these guys." I FaceTimed every single one of them,
Nice.
and I was just like, "I don't want no, it's not the day. I just want to tap into these guys. Fuck that, you know." So,
Yeah, same with a workout, right? Like some days you'll give her the camera because you want to get a little bit of content because you gotta. I always say you gotta feed the beast, right? Like the Instagram algorithm thing. Like if you're not, the more you post, the more you'll push your stuff up on the feed, right? And like if you slow down, it slows down. So you gotta always keep driving. And you're like, some days I just want to go to the gym and just have a workout in.
yep,
Like, I don't want to have to worry about. I'm gonna leave my phone in my damn car because
yep.
today I want to get a workout in, kick my own ass, and not have to worry about a call come in or this or that. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's
Dude,
something I don't.
if I didn't need it, I would not have it. And
Right. It's crazy.
I've said that so many times on here, Josh, and I truly don't think that anybody believes me because I'm on there a lot, but that's how I pay my bills.
Hmm. Hmm. Same. Yeah.
All
Same.
all my guys come from social media. Every single one of them. They don't just randomly fucking find me.
Right.
I don't
Same
just
with my
meet.
wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
she makes your sales, man. And you look at the Shopify and you do your little search on there and it shows 90% of sales come from Instagram. So you can make that argument that like I'm working, I got to do this, and maybe just have a good separation, right, where you're not on it all the time, or you turn it off on the weekends, or you and your wife have a quiet time where you just airplane mode those things and put them aside, or say today we're going to ride without it. So I mean everything in moderation. I agree to that, but the social media thing, if I ever did start to make more money as a rancher, I think after hiring a part-time person or whatever ranch hand, the next position I would hire out would be like the social media manager, right? Like for you, like if you made enough money, let's say you started supplements or whatever that took off, and you wanted to hire one person, you could just have someone strictly do the content and post it, reply to your messages. You wouldn't have to deal with it, right? Like they could film you work out once in a while. You could do some cool ad content or whatever, but yeah, just turf that off to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's a grind, and I've gotten a lot better at this, but I'll get in here 8, 9, 10 o'clock, whatever it is. I'll work till 5 or 6, and when I get home, I'll check my shit one more fucking time, and then I will do my absolute best to scroll downwards on my phone, hit the little airplane,
Yep.
flip that fucker upside down on the table, and I'll do my absolute best not to touch that thing again until the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like, dude, I'm on it all day.
Yeah.
I'm on it all day. Like, I'm one of the guys who's on Instagram on his fucking laptop. Like, that's how
Right.
much I'm on it. Like, nobody goes on Instagram on their desktop, you
Yeah.
know?
So
It's like
how many podcasts do you do a month, let's say?
the pod actually has slowed down just a hair, because my actual coaching business is going pretty well. Um, but usually I'm one a week. Yeah, I've been doing it for shoot 4 or so years, coming up on 200, which is apparently no small feat. But dude, I should have fucking had one last week. I didn't. I ended up kicking this fucking guy off my podcast 15 minutes in. Never experienced anything like this in my entire life, Josh.
I gotta hear this.
This dude was just an arrogant fucking prick. He did not want to be here. Um, Finally he's like, "Well, now ask your question." And I was like, "Well, I got a question. Like, do you want to be here, dude?"
Nice.
And it was unbelievable. It was I told a couple of people, I told my old man, he's like, "You did what?" I was like, "I've never experienced anything like this in my life." Like, you've listened to my show, dude. You know how I am a little bit on this thing, and you've talked to me now for going on an hour. Like, I am fully tapped into this. Like, somebody's got to be a real prick for me to just be like, "Fuck it."
Yeah. That is funny.
Dude had
First time
dude
for
had
everything, they say.
dude had 250,000 followers. Didn't give a fuck. I was like, "We're done here." Like, see ya, dude. Like, I can't do this. What are we doing?
Waste of your time.
That's
Oh,
why I
that's
always
funny.
ask. I'm
Well,
like, how much? I asked you at the beginning. I was like, how much time you guys want to be respectful, man? Because this ain't got nothing to do with me. This is about you. I want to learn about you and your life and what you got going on.
appreciate the time. And then, just out of curiosity, how long does it take you to edit one of these?
If I don't get like cut off in the middle, or something weird happens, I don't know, 20 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad. So
Yeah,
a
I'll,
couple
I'll
hours to do the podcast, 20 minutes, half hour to edit it.
Yeah, and I try to source that, but I'm pretty anal when it comes to like audio quality and kind of how I want to structure it. And I like creating the project, right? It's fun to book the guest, and then it's fun to have the conversation, and then it's also fun to like put the intro in and the ads where they go, and then the outro, and then the title is always, I kind of try to make that creative, and then the description. So, to answer your question, I'll probably end up dropping this in a few hours, if not at
Oh,
the latest tomorrow morning.
right on.
So,
Yeah, I was just curious because the wife and I were just talking about a podcast because I keep pushing her to do YouTube because she spends so much time and the quality of the content is so great that I feel like, and I'll give you her handle too. You can throw her stuff out there in case people want to kind of see the other side of the ranch and stuff. But I look at that and I'm like, do we really need one extra iron in the fire, right? But she's kind of kicking around a podcast,
yeah,
uh,
do it.
and yeah, well, I didn't even have
Yeah.
to convince you. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
well,
you need
what
to
we
do
were
it.
thinking too is get another first generation ranching couples mainly probably on there and just talking about like the struggles of the first generation and learning from people and kind of going from there. Not that we would never get somebody on there like a featured guest who wasn't first generation or maybe was a single, male or female that wasn't married. But I think it'd be cool to talk to other couples because so another statistic is like 95% of the ranchers in this country are 50 head of cattle or less. So that's almost the majority of ranchers have the same size operation that we do. So it's all small ranches. The big ones are few and far between, and they make up the minority. So I think it'd be interesting when you say like, how did I learn a lot of this stuff, or how did our situation develop? It's kind of like it'd be cool see what got other people into this first generation ranching thing. And then I think it would be a good resource for people that are wanting to get into ranching or struggling in first generation ranching to kind of hear other people be like, that's a good idea, or I haven't thought of that, So, but
It's
yeah,
just
you
it's
said
free
you were
game.
a
It's free
yeah,
game. It's free game. I mean, I've learned a ton from you, and I don't even, I don't really have an interest in cattle farming.
right,
But
right,
like just to get your perspective on life, leaving your job, fucking going for it, your parenting style, the relationship with your wife, I think that's all fantastic. That's why I do this. So you guys could talk to kind of the first generational pieces, but then you also could have a legitimate cowboy on where you can pick his brain and learn things from him and then take that and apply that to kind of what you're doing in your
yeah,
day-to-day life. It's awesome. And selfishly, dude, like people like talking about themselves. That's why they come on podcasts,
hmm
right? Like
yeah,
they do, which is great because it's a win for everybody.
right, yeah.
Hmm.
No, I always enjoy the podcast where you have a guest on there and it's something in a world that you're not familiar with, and if you have someone that's running the podcast that can keep the conversation going and make it seem kind of natural, then it's easy to listen to. And pretty soon, like you said, I do a lot of driving just the same. So you put a podcast on, and then 2.5 hours later, you're still actively like Joe Rogan's a master of that. Like I listen to his podcast more than
Fantastic.
right. I'm just like, did 3 hours really just go by? And I've been listening to every word these and there's really not a section where there's downtime or something boring or you want to fast forward through a piece. So yeah, there's an art to it for sure. But yeah, we may circle back and start our own.
You should. Yeah, the YouTube is big too. That's something I'm trying to tap into, but I don't have time for it. I can film it, but I can't edit it.
Yeah,
I source that. I can't put that shit
yeah,
together. I can't tell the story. I can, but like I just don't have the time,
right, yeah.
So,
No, for sure. That takes a lot of extra time to edit
but
those.
yeah.
Yeah, those long format videos can get exhausting.
Well, dude, I'm looking. You got anything else on your heart?
You know, I would just sort of wrap up and say, hey, if anybody's out there looking at doing what we do, feel free to reach out. I'm always here to answer questions or direct you to people that might have better answers than I. And I don't want to sound jaded or beat down, but yeah, it's tough. If you're wanting to do it full time, I would say, right? Like if you're just doing a hobby farm and you want to get some animals, get some land, that's great, and not quit your day job. But if you're looking to do it, full time and you want to be successful, there's certain things you should do ahead of time before you jump into that, just to make it a little easier, less chaotic ride. Preparation.
Yeah. Before I get you out, I like asking this question, and you can take your time with this. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh man, that is a good one. Let me think here. Advice, best piece of advice. One that comes to my mind. It's not really best piece of advice, but maybe it'll suffice. My old man had told me one time. He'd said, "If this is the worst that ever happens to you, consider yourself lucky." So, so I kind of put things in perspective that way when things go south, right? Just kind of think like, all right, like this isn't as bad as it could be, right? Like I'm sure life has some pretty horrible things in store as time goes on, right? Things get tougher and you get older and lose loved ones and things like that, right? So just keeping things in perspective. But yeah, just off the cuff, that's all I could really think of as far as advice.
What are you scared of?
Um, man, I guess I don't know if scared's the right word, but I don't want to quit what I've started here because I want to try to have something to hand down to my son. I want to be able to provide that second or maybe third generation. I really feel like there's a torch that needs to be carried. That's the hill I would die on, right? Is like you need to get more people into this ranching. Otherwise it's just going to disappear. And so I don't want to be the guy that was like beating his chest and trying to promote that and then I throw the towel in. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. So I want to keep pushing that forward and see it become successful. And successful isn't having the nice equipment or the new truck. It's just about ranching's never been about the money, especially cowboying, right? Like cowboys, vaqueros, buckaroos. Traditionally, all those guys were peons. They were poor. They're broke. They make their own gear out of whatever they could find. They were eating beans and corn tortillas and whatever meat they could get their hands on, right? So it's not something that's going to make you incredibly rich, especially at this day and age. But it's rewarding. You just can't say, "Oh, it's the lifestyle. We're here for the lifestyle," because you have to be able to pay bills. You have to be able to save up some money, like especially as you start to have children, right? Like things happen. Like you got to have some money. Money is security. Money is safety. So you have to have some. You can't just be scraping by, So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I got for that one.
Yeah. It's kind of full circle, man. It's a big responsibility. That's a little bit of pressure, but I think pressure is good. That's when guys like you and I really perform. Little heat on us,
Yeah.
and I'm very green to you and what you're doing. We just linked up. Maybe it was Thursday or Friday. Scheduled this for today on a Monday, so I have no doubt that you'll keep going. I don't see you quitting anytime soon. It seems like you got a great teammate and your wife, and from what I can tell, man, you guys are doing it right.
I appreciate that. That means a lot, especially from outsiders looking in, because a lot of times when you're in the fight, you don't see things as clearly. So I do appreciate that, and as long as my health keeps up, I'm gonna keep doing what I do and try to improve my skills, the cowboy skills, and try to better the business and try to encourage other people to do it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get you out of here, where can people find you? So plug your social medias and all that fun shit, and I'll put that in the description of the pod for people.
Yeah, for sure. The website is ciardulloranch.com, and the Instagram is at Ciardullo, Ciardullo underscore cattle underscore co. So Ciardullo Cattle Company. And then my wife's is Erica, Erica underscore Ciardullo. Yeah, and I appreciate that.
It was an honor, my friend.
Yeah, same, same. I'd have to come up to Montana and visit you sometime, check it out, because we definitely look at property up north.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll go halvesies on something because I've been looking for some stuff.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Okay, stay on the line. Let's get your file uploaded and I'll let you slide, Josh. I appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for having us on.